Hoardganize Podcast. I am your host, professional organizer Rachel Seavey, and it's time to get organized. Hey, collectors. Today we're talking about two different things. Being in a relationship that has tension because of clutter, or we're talking about not being in a relationship and that causing depression, lack of enthusiasm, leading to even more clutter. It's kind of heavy, right? Well, it's no secret to me that when people are in a relationship, their partner plays an influence in their behavior. But what happens when you have hoarding tendencies and your partner is sick and tired of you and your stuff? Are any of you out there in a relationship like this? It's tough. You both try and be cordial, but you feel like they're constantly bugging you to clean up your mess and they can't understand why you can't get rid of anything. I've worked with a lot of people in this situation. It's men, it's women, and it can also be siblings and parents or just a roommate. It just basically any situation where there's more than one person living in a space, and one of the people has one or more could have problems with clutter and one or more doesn't. It just causes a lot of conflict in a household, and especially when there isn't a lot of understanding when it comes to people who are suffering from hoarding disorder. And clutter can really begin the main excuse why people aren't getting along. I work with a lot of couples that allow clutter to really tear their relationships apart. And I understand both sides of the story. It's definitely a hard thing to work through. So I'd like to give you some examples of people that I've worked with, and hopefully it will help you a little bit in whatever kind of situation that you are in. So I have worked with a lady for a really long time, and she actually does not get along with her husband at all because of the clutter. It's quite sad. They've been married for about 40 years. They're both retired, and he spends most of his time outside or golfing or trying to stay away from her, and she spends a lot of her time in shame and just kind of going in circles, whether she's mad at him or resentful because he doesn't understand, and he's upset and resentful because he can't have a flat surface that isn't completely covered with clutter in his house. So I had been working with them for a long time, and they had started to talk about divorce. And that's just something that I thought was pretty extreme considering their house. It wasn't like a super hoarding situation. It was more of, just like I said, all the flat surfaces were covered with at least, 6 inches to all kinds of different things. I mean, there was, makeup, stationery, mail, clothing, dog treats, cat stuff. They didn't have any kids, but they had lots of pets. So there was all sorts of stuff around that was just covering all the surfaces without any rhyme or reason. And her husband was feeling really suffocated with all of her stuff. And so I was really worried about the state of their relationship because they'd been together so long, because they had so many different things that they used to like to do together until the clutter kind of really started taking over. So I suggested, and a lot of you might not have this kind of an option, but what we did with their relationship, which might be helpful for you, is we decided that we were going to work specifically on the common areas. So they made an agreement. It was really nice. And I think that all couples or relationships can start just with some common grounds with an agreement. They made the agreement that He was not going to lecture or badger or question or interrogate her about her stuff, about when she's going to clean it up or why she can't get rid of anything. And she was going to keep the common areas clean and work on her clutter, because they both really decided that their relationship was so much more important than the stuff, and that they had both allowed the stuff to kind of get in between. I mean, she was holding on to stuff that she didn't even want just because she didn't want him to feel like he won. So definitely see both sides of the story, and hopefully some of you can see yourself on one of these sides or the other. Or maybe you're not in a relationship, but this is interesting because gosh, you've always wanted to be in a relationship and this is what could happen. So anyway, we moved all of her stuff into a spare bedroom that they had. And we did it in a pretty organized fashion. So we sorted it out, makeup with makeup, mail with mail, but everything got moved into this other room. We didn't really process it, but we did kind of like a light sort because it just didn't feel right to scoop it all up. But you know what? I would have been fine with just scooping it all up because it was more important for me to salvage and see that this relationship was salvaged and strong than it was to, you know, push a bunch of organizing stuff on this couple that I ended up knowing really well. And so we moved all of our stuff into the spare bedroom, and with a commitment to process it in the future together, that I would help her go through it, but also allowing the common areas to be relieved of all of that clutter. So if you're in a relationship and you feel like you have a garage or a spare room or some sort of area, please don't get a storage unit, some sort of extra space that you can move your stuff out of the common areas, that would be definitely something I suggest if you have the space. Now, I know a lot of you don't have the space to do that kind of a thing. So I definitely suggest that if you're in a relationship, like I said, it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be your parents or your grandparents, even, or just someone you're renting a room from on the Craigslist. It just, if you're sharing a space with somebody and your stuff is starting to creep into the common areas, it is going to cause some conflict. So I definitely suggest to try and work on those areas first. It's very important that your baggage or clutter isn't overwhelming the people that you live with, because they will start to resent you and they will wonder why you can't throw things out, and you'll start to feel judged. And it's just basically par for the course if you're sharing a space with someone, especially someone that's tidy, that they're not going to want your stuff all over their area or their space, or at least the common areas. So you definitely want to work in the common areas, which are usually the kitchen. If you share the kitchen, any bedrooms that you share, any, living room or family room or dining room areas that you share, bathroom, any of these areas that are shared should definitely be addressed, because you don't want to smother the people you're living with your stuff and then wonder why they're resenting you. So I can totally see both sides. So if you can move all your stuff to one area so that you can sort it out while giving these people their space, that would be ideal. If not, then I definitely suggest starting in those common areas so that the person that you live with knows that you're trying to work on your clutter and that you've got some sort of a strategy. Now, the other side of what I hear a lot. What if you're not in a relationship, and this, just not being in a relationship, not having kids or not being married, makes you feel very depressed just in itself, with or without clutter. I work with people that don't have that much clutter, but the fact that they've never had kids or the fact that they haven't been married has really weighed heavily on their hearts. And it's totally understandable. And it's something that's a really heavy feeling for people to go through. So a lot of the times people will blame their clutter for why they're single when I work with them, and that, they kind of give up their cleaning, their self-care, their motivation. They're not really motivated to do anything in their lives because, who cares? It's just them and they're not worthy of anything. And so I feel like this population of people that are suffering with clutter and they're single and feel misunderstood definitely need a little bit of airtime here on the podcast. A few years ago I did a podcast. I remember telling you guys about this lady that I was working with, and she was amazing. She was actually dating a couple of different people, well, whatever, but and she had a lot of clutter, pretty a lot of clutter. I'm not gonna be, polite or anything. She had a lot of stuff, mostly clothing and jewelry and product and stuff like that. But it was everywhere. It was in every room, and it was high up piles. There are lots and lots of piles. And she just was dating and living her life and having a good old time. And she had decided that she was not going to hold herself back from living. So she was dating this one guy in particular that she really liked a lot. And I guess he wanted to come over, and she told him no. She said, I really like you a lot. It has nothing to do with you, but I'm working on the clutter in my house. It's something that I am kind of embarrassed about, and I really would love to have you over once I've resolved this issue. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So if that's something that anyone out there that's listening can think of or kind of hope for, I mean, I just thought that was really cool because a lot of you out there are not doing that. Actually, I haven't met anyone since her, and that's why she stood out so much in my mind. That was really truly living their life and being single with clutter. So I thought that it was great that she was really honest with this person, and he continued to date her, and she continued to work on her clutter, and it was just great because she was able to live her life and also try and get organized. So a lot of people out there kind of blame their clutter for their lonely nights, like no one would ever like someone like me who's such a mess. And people don't feel worthy because of the state of their home. And it's as though the state of their home determines their loyalty, like the state of their home determines their character, and it just baffles me. It's like the state of their home is the end all chance for having any romance or having any fun or doing anything they enjoy in their life. And and a lot of you are so you're well educated, you're funny, you're sarcastic, and you're just beautiful people. And I really think you're all being really hard on yourselves. I think if you worked with me before, or if you've really listened to when I touch this, I think a lot of you should be out there dating. I think a lot of you should be out there socializing at the least. And if you meet someone, give them boundaries, like the lady I was just talking about. And what better boundary right now is the pandemic? I mean, use that as an excuse. Here we blame all sorts of things in the pandemic. Maybe you could actually meet some people because everything's on Zoom now. Everything's online now. You can find all sorts of things. Like, remember Bill? I mean, he's out there playing all sorts of games. He has a robust social life. I'm so impressed at how he's able to balance working on his clutter and having a social life. There's a lot of people out there that are on Facebook. I'm sure you could find some sort of internet group or do that Dungeons and Dragons thing that Bill does. I mean, there are people out there that like the same thing as you. And right now there's really no better time because you could tell somebody, hey, I don't want you coming over to my house because of the coronavirus. And I know it's hard for me to say that with a straight face, but I am being serious. I definitely think that you should use any kind of excuse to meet people, socialize, have more love and laughter in your life. It's not the end of the world because you have clutter. It's not the end of the world if you're a hoarder. I think that you'd be able to at least clear, a space like this, right? And just whatever so that your video can work, or maybe over the phone. I mean, there are people out there that don't need to know all about your clutter and that will like you for who you are. A lot of you are very, very cool, artistic, creative, lovely, beautiful people that I get the chance to meet, that I'm so grateful that I get the chance to help. And I know that other people out there would love being your friend. So we're in an online world right now. There's no excuse why you can't meet people. And if you're not in a relationship, then I definitely, definitely encourage you to meet someone now. And I am not a relationship expert by any means. I mean, good grief. I don't even want to go there with you, but I have been divorced twice. So I just know that when it comes to clutter, and that's why I'm talking about this with you guys, that the clutter causes a lot of pain for you, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're not. And it's really time to make that decision about what's important to you. What's more important, your clutter, your social life, your clutter, your relationships, your clutter, or enjoying yourself? And you've really got to take some time to think about whether your clutter is literally getting in the way of you enjoying your life, of you being happy. If your clutter is getting between you and your friendships, do you punish yourself because you're not letting yourself live because you have clutter? It's time to ask yourself these really tough questions. One of my favorite questions to ask people that I'm working with is, if your clutter wasn't an issue right now, would your relationships be better? Would your life be better? Would you have more fun? Would you allow yourself to truly live and do the things that you enjoy? Then why not do it now? Why not live your life and be happy and enjoy life and work on your clutter at the same time? It's okay to be happy. It's okay to enjoy life and have clutter. You don't have to punish yourself. As long as you're determined to clear your clutter out, and as long as you're working on your clutter, on your organizing skills, on your decluttering skills, then you have the permission to enjoy your life. Life is short, life is sweet. Enjoy your life, collectors. Stop using clutter as an excuse to not live. It's time to really let go of those ideas, of the beliefs, and of the clutter that's weighing you down. And the rest, it'll all come naturally. I hope that was helpful for you guys. So, for those of you on Facebook, please join our new Hoardganize Podcast page. Starting in December, I will be doing a decluttering event where from the 1st to the 25th, every single day, one item at least will go. And really, the only rule is that the stuff is going to donation. So that rule is because from December 26th to January 1st, which is a great time, you get your tax receipts in, you will be donating this stuff. So I'm not doing selling stuff. Sorry, guys, I'm just not there yet. We're not giving things or saving things for people that we know. This is strictly donations, but it could be any charity or any thrift store of your choice. So from December 1st to December 25th, we, as in you and we will be going through our stuff in the house and getting rid of at least one thing a day to go to donation. Again, the only rule is that it has to leave before January 1st, and it has to be donated to a charity or even a thrift store of your choice. I just don't want you saving things for people you know or making any extra trips. These are strictly donations. And even I am going to be ruthless. There might be some things that you think, oh my gosh, why didn't she sell that? Because this is all about donations. I'm not procrastinating. I'm trying to get rid of stuff in my house. And it's funny because I told a couple of people that I'm doing this challenge and they were like, do you have 25 things to get rid of? Because I hardly have anything. I've gotten a little bit minimalistic. Of course I've got a kid, pets, business. I have stuff that's related to that kind of stuff, but personally my own stuff, yeah, it's going to be quite challenging, and I actually do really appreciate a good challenge because even I have some stuff that I don't even use. So it's time to let it go, right? And that's on the Hoardganize Podcast Facebook page. So you have to be following me there to see every single day. I'll be uploading a photo of something that I get rid of. And hopefully you will join the challenge too. I'm giving you plenty of notice. I will be promoting it all over social media. But starting December 1st, all the way through Christmas, we are going to be getting rid of one item each day and giving it to a charity before the end of the year. Now, for those of you that are listening to this podcast on a device and you feel so kind as to leave me a review, and you know how to do that on iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio or however you listen to my podcast, please be kind and leave me a good review. And if you don't like my podcast, then don't leave me a review, right? And if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed, click the thumbs up button, and make sure that you have that notification bell on, because I will be also doing some short videos on YouTube about the December challenge that I just mentioned before. I am also very excited. Next week, I will be featuring Sophia. She's a wonderful listener of ours. She has been so kind as to share her life struggle with clutter on the podcast. And I'm so excited to share that episode with you next week. It's very insightful. I hope that you find it helpful. I hope you find some of it healing, to know that you're not the only one out there that feels like that. I know Sophia sometimes feels like she's the only one out there that feels that way about stuff. So thank you so much for being a brave soul, Sophia. We will be listening to your story next week. And I have been in contact with Bill. I hope you're listening as well. I'd love to follow up with your progress on the podcast. And until next time, collectors, and remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.